7 bluebirds. This is a vision I had. I think it was either 1979 or 1980, I can't remember exactly. But I remember every minute detail about this vision. I'd just finished making the beds and I'd come downstairs to do some housework. I went into the living room and suddenly I had a feeling that I should sit down and close my eyes. This was so strong that I just obeyed. We didn't have much furniture at that time, and the couch was a mattress on the floor underneath the window with a blanket on it. So I sat down with my back to the wall, just underneath the window, and I closed my eyes. Suddenly I was in a field, and the field was full of wild flowers. The ground was soft and moist. I could feel the wind on my cheek. It was a really, really beautiful place. Suddenly I looked up to my right and up into the sky, and there was the sun. It was bright yellow, and it didn't hurt my eyes to look at it, but it shone, it throbbed with this light and power. And all of a sudden, 7 little birds flew out of the sun. They were blue, but their bellies were yellow, and they glowed like the sun and pulsated with the same sort of vibration. I just stared at them. And suddenly I saw a man in front of me, and he was kneeling down with his back to me. He had a green jacket on, and he had dark hair. I couldn't see his face. Suddenly I realised he had a gun in his hand, a big shotgun. He pointed upwards towards the birds, and I tried to move forward and warn him, but I couldn't move, and I realised at that moment that I was only there as a spectator. The gun went off with the most horrific bang. It just shook me all over, and I watched the 7 little birds fall to the ground. The man just moved away, and I walked over towards where the birds were, and there they were lying on the ground, clearly dead. But their little bodies, their little bellies were still yellow, and they were still pulsating with this beautiful, beautiful light. I became aware of somebody approaching, and I looked, and there was a little boy, and he was blonde. He had blonde curly hair and very, very light skin. He must have been about 12 years old, I don't know. He didn't see me, but he moved closer, and he lifted each little bird in turn and looked at it, and their bodies were still glowing with this beautiful light. Next thing I know, he was digging a little hole, and one by one he laid the beautiful little creatures inside of it. And I peered over, and I could see that they were still glowing with this beautiful light. He covered the birds with earth, and then he planted a little tree on top of it, but the tree had no leaves. The next thing I know, I can feel the sun on my face, and I'm in my bedroom, and I've got an urge to walk towards the window, which I do, and I look out, and there in the garden is the tree that the boy had planted, but now it was covered in green leaves, and 7 little bluebirds with bellies that shone like the sun. Wow, it was just totally amazing, because the next thing I know, I open my eyes and I'm still sitting on the sofa, and only a few moments had actually passed. I've carried this with me for so many years and held it in my heart, because it just shows me about how the circle of life is real, of death, life, death, living, sunshine, warmth, sadness, happiness. Then I suppose it was about 15 years ago, I was reminded of that vision again, because I'd moved by then. I lived in a different house, in a different village, and we had a downstairs toilet. All the doors were closed, all the windows were closed. I needed a wee, so I opened the toilet door, and what is sitting on the toilet rim but a little blue tit. And as you know, blue tits are blue and yellow. And I just didn't know what to do. I moved closer. I didn't want to frighten the little creature too much. I wanted it to go out. So first of all, I opened the back door. Then, as I said, I moved towards the little creature, but it didn't fly towards the back door, which was open, but into the kitchen. And with one almighty bang, it threw against the window pane, and there it lay on the draining board, lifeless. And I thought it was dead, because when I picked it up, its little head drooped to one side, its little eyes were closed. It was all lovely and warm and soft. It weighed hardly anything. I don't know why I did this, but I did. I went outside. It was mid-morning and the sun was shining brightly, and I held my hand up with this little tiny weeny dead creature in it, and I looked at the sun, and I held my hand up to the sun, and I said, please, please. I've actually got tears in my eyes whilst I tell you this, because I felt so sad. But what happened next was just totally amazing, because suddenly it started to stir, and that little limp neck came to life again. It lifted its head, and with those little dark eyes, it sat there and it looked at me. And for a few seconds, and then suddenly it flew off over my head and into my friend Rose's garden and into a tree. And there in the tree were lots of other little birds like it, waiting. And then they all suddenly flew off together. Oh, I mean, that was just totally amazing. What do you think of that? I felt filled with awe, belonging, and I just had to share this with you because I've carried it with me all these years, this beautiful vision of how everything carries on and how there is always hope. Love to all of you, love to this beautiful earth. May we start to look after her and each other.